Los and Britton. How are y'all?
We're doing
Good,
good.
good. How are you?
Happy to have y'all here. So, of course, we got to start this by asking the question that we ask everybody because we likes to get all up in your business. How long have y'all been together and how did you first meet?
We've been married for 5
5
years and we've been together for 6.5 years. We met at the gym, 24-hour fitness. One night, we both worked late shift. And so our other gym that we were members of was closed already. 24-hour fitness was obviously open 24 hours. So we both were there on like a day pass. And we made eye contact in the gym. And so I was like, all right, cool. I'll make sure that I stop him in the locker room or something like that.
Uh-oh.
So I did, and we exchanged phone numbers, and that was pretty much it. Like after that, it was
The rest is history.
yeah. I mean, the next day it was like nonstop communication, and that's how it's been since.
This was in Houston, Texas that y'all met.
Yes.
What was it that clicked that made y'all say, you know what? I think I'm feeling this dude right here.
It just seemed like we were on the same page with everything as far as education, as far as life goals and things that we had already accomplished and achieved and things that we wanted to accomplish and achieve in the future. So we were really on the same page with that. And for me, that was a turn on. That was like like a thumbs up, like a go ahead, like, okay, this may be the one.
In my previous relationships before him, I was always the one doing and giving, and so that was the role that I played. Probably not necessarily, I wouldn't say by choice, but those were the cards I was dealt. I was always the one with the degrees and the good paying job and all of that. And so like once I moved to Houston, it was important for me to find somebody that was either on my level or above my level. And so when I met him, he already had multiple degrees. He had a good job.
I was above.
Okay, I heard multiple degrees. I was like, multiple, come on, multiple.
So once we got to know each other and I got, to find out that information about him, that was a turn on for me because it put me in a different space that I had never been in, but that I always wanted to be in.
Are y'all both originally from Houston, Texas?
No.
I'm
originally from Shreveport, Louisiana.
I'm from Beaumont, Texas.
Okay, so we got two country folks up here on the line. So let's start with your coming out journeys or navigating your sexuality in your earlier lives leading up to the relationship. What was that journey like?
I guess say my first attraction to a male. For me, it was just something that flowed naturally because men know what men want, men know what men like. Because as a man, I know what I like and I know things that that I desire or things like that. So for me, having that attraction to men, it honestly just came natural. I really don't have a coming out story because I didn't just make an announcement to my family or to my friends, hey, I'm gay or whatever. Honestly, my first boyfriend, I brought him around the family and I was like, hey, this is such and such, and I didn't give a title. So I really don't have like the whole I came out to my family story or anything like that.
And that was another thing that kind of attracted me to him. We both had like similar journeys. So growing up, I always kind of knew that I was attracted to both sexes. So it really wasn't a big deal for me to like a guy, and it really wasn't a big deal for me to date a girl. So as I grew older, I was always the kid. I'm the middle kid of three. And so out of the three of us, I was always the go-getter. I was always the one to think outside of the box. And so I didn't necessarily care or want to involve people in my life, so to speak. I was just going to live my life the way I wanted to live my life, regardless of how anyone felt. So I didn't necessarily have a come out type of situation either. I've always kind of lived like, okay, cool. This is what I'm bringing to the table. You can respect it, you can like it, or you don't, or you can leave. And so that's pretty much how I've always navigated my life, navigated my sexuality. because I compare it to heterosexuality, and I feel that straight people aren't obligated to walk around with a sign that says, "Hey, I'm straight." They aren't obligated to have coming out parties to say, "Hey, I'm 18 now and I'm still straight." And so I don't necessarily feel like gay people should have to either. You're gonna love me and respect me and accept me for my character above my sexuality.
That's interesting to hear, because we usually hear like these very jarring tales about coming out, or how somebody's mama got a phone call or saw a text message. So like, being there in the South, how did you both develop that, I guess, confidence around your sexuality, and understanding you don't have to answer to anybody about it?
Within myself, I just never felt that obligation. And, you know, and not just growing up in the South, but I grew up, my grandfather was a minister. I was raised Pentecostal, Church of God in Christ. So you already know.
I know,
You already know how they can be. You already know how they can be, but you know, just from being raised that way, it really gave me tough skin. And I was, you know, I just always felt like, hey, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it wholeheartedly. I'm going to do it because it's, you know, it's what I believe in, it's what I want to do, you know, regardless of what anyone has to say or think. And, you know, I've heard those horror stories of, you know, being a gay Black man in the South, or being a gay Black man in the church. And, you know, we've all heard of those stories, but for me, and I was like, it is what it is. It is what it is.
So I grew up in the South, but I went to private school half of my life. So that's different, you know, from an environmental like standpoint and what we're exposed to at that point. So I really wasn't exposed to the world to experience anything other than what we were taught, and the principles we were taught in private school. Once I did go into the public world, into public education, I went to a predominantly Caucasian school. And so what people don't necessarily probably look at or realize, but when it comes to the LGBTQ community, it's totally different amongst whites than it is amongst Blacks.
How
So
so?
I always say that as Black people, we are probably the poison to our situation. We, depending on who you are and the groups that you're around, a lot of times African Americans will drag you down and judge you more and put you in precarious situations over any other race.
I would say we can sometimes be the least accepting.
We absolutely
The least accepting.
So when it came to like, as I stated before, like I didn't walk around with a sign on my chest saying, "Hey, I'm a gay Black guy," or "Hey, I'm a gay guy." Like I didn't do that. I didn't feel the need to. However, I've never changed who I was around any certain group of people. So as I grew older and I was able to compare and contrast my dealings with white people, my dealings with Black people, like you can see a total, like it's an obvious difference in regards to my relationships and my experiences with white people versus my relationships and my experiences with Black people. So throughout that whole coming out process and growing up in this lifestyle, it was easier for me, I feel, because of the group that I was hanging around, opposed to had I been surrounded by a lot of Black people.
So you think that being around more white people made it a little easier in some ways because there was less judgment?
Correct.
You know, obviously there's the racial tension that exists between the white and the Black community. So being in the South and interacting with the white community, white community in the South, at a primarily white institution, was it because you were disassociated, or, you know, with the white community there, that did they just not care?
I think it's a mixture of both. Honestly, I will say, so not to toot my own horn, but I'm a scholar, okay? And so growing up, like I was an honor student all my life. So with that, there comes a level and a degree of separation. Growing up in school, I never really was surrounded or didn't really have many Black friends anyway.
Mhm.
due to the circumstances of my academia and all of that. So I never was really surrounded by Black people. My exposure with my own culture really came when I went to college.
Hmm.
And so that's when I was able to see exactly the treatment that we give each other as Black people compared to the treatment that I had received growing up with white people and further in my relationships with white people. So I would say it had to do with a level of separation because I was already separated from them due to what I was involved with in life. And then two, the exposure limit. So I wasn't exposed to Black people like talking about until later in life.
When you finally started interacting with the Black community, did you experience homophobia then?
Oh, of course.
Okay, so what was that like?
I mean, to be honest, we experience homophobia amongst the LGBTQ community. So it's so many different branches of how homosexuality is looked at, if what type of gay couple you are, what type of gay person you are. I kind of, my biggest example that I always use is when Black people were really big into Black Lives Matter.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't. And a lot of my Black friends had a problem with me and they didn't understand why I wasn't just pro Black Lives Matter. And I wasn't because every Black life has to matter in order to say Black Lives Matter.
Mm-hmm.
And if you grew up in the church, I don't care what your background is. If you're going to chant and say Black Lives Matter, then every Black life should matter. You shouldn't pick and choose what Black life matters and when it matters to you. If a person gets shot due to police violence, okay, cool, Black Lives Matter. But then if a gay guy gets shot, then you come up with these excuses and these judgments based on, oh, well, he shouldn't have been gay, or he shouldn't have been where he was, or he shouldn't have been fooling with that man, and or whatever the case may be, then Black lives don't 100% matter. And so those are like small things that I kind of dealt with amongst our community and our culture as it related to like homophobia in the Black family, homophobia amongst your friends. Yeah.
Interesting. Thank you for opening up about that, because we don't talk about that a lot.
So Britton and I both we have our master's in clinical and mental health counseling.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, I've always it was interesting getting that degree because it allowed me to, behind a book, learn more about the way we think and the way we move. And a lot of things that happen amongst African Americans, we don't talk about them because we grew up not talking about stuff. We grew up and what your mama say, what happened in this house, stay in this house. Don't you go telling nothing that happened in this house. And we've taken that and we've applied that to our own personal lives and our friendships and our relationships. And it's really toxic because some things should be talked about. When it comes to a big topic that a lot of people bring to me is how they feel that media is pushing homosexuality onto kids. No, you're a parent. You parent your kid. The media shouldn't be running your household. So no, media isn't pushing anything on your kid. You should probably be having conversations with your children about the reality of the world and what they're going to be exposed to, whether or not you shelter them or not. And so those are the type of different things that I've encountered, like dealing with the Black community as it relates to homosexuality and the LGBTQ community.
What is the two of your relationship like with the Black community in the town that you live in now?
Oh, it's good. Yeah, it's good.
Okay. Y'all be carrying potato salad down to the little picnics and things.
Yeah, no, it's good. And what it really boils down to, if we take color out of it, like all in all, it boils down to the maturity level of a person.
Yes.
And if you're mature, the respect level is important as well. And if you have those pieces, it doesn't necessarily matter if you're Black or white or Hispanic or whatever the case may be. but it boils down to maturity level and an ignorance level. A lot of us are ignorant to a lot of things, and that's why we don't necessarily know how to move or interact with certain cultures or groups of people, because we're ignorant to it.
As both Black men, do you ever encounter any sort of racial issues there in the town you live in?
I haven't.
I wouldn't say that we don't encounter them. Maybe it's hidden racism. It's just not blatantly open and, out racism, So I wouldn't say that we don't encounter it. I would just say it hasn't placed us in a position to where, we've had to become defensive or defend ourselves or anything like that.
Are y'all pretty open as a couple there?
No, we're not the couple that walk around holding hands in public and kissing and all that. That's just not something. That's just something that we don't do. Never have. So we're not, I guess you would say, that couple that's showing the PDA and all this stuff. So, but I would say I wouldn't say that we're disrespected. I would say we're more respected than anything.
For the course of the 6.5 years, what have been some of your biggest challenges and how have you overcome them together?
Communication and wearing my heart on my sleeves. Mine
has been talking to you and not at you. Being able to sit down and have those hard conversations and having them to not to just hear what you're saying, but to understand what you're saying and to make change so we can move forward with it. I'll be honest with you, I am no nonsense. Like, if you sit up there crying, I'm gonna look at you like, what's wrong? Shut up. Let's move forward.
Really? Okay, so
I am not. If you and like with us getting the counseling degrees, that has changed me a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, like a few years ago, like I don't want to hear no crying. I don't want to hear no complaining. Like, just shut up, suck it up. Let's move on. Let's move forward.
So we need to talk about that right quick, about Black men and how we process. Where did you learn that at?
How we
where did you learn that we ain't crying, get over it and smile?
Well, that's how my dad. That's how my dad was. Like, he was like, dust yourself off. Let's move on. Let's move forward. I was also in the military.
Mm.
So, in the military, it's no sitting there crying, trying to figure things out. You just make that plan of action and you stick to it. I'm very structured. I do not like change. I'm better. I'm more open with it now. But like a few years ago, like I look back on, my actions and some of the things in the past, and I probably wouldn't have dealt with me. I probably would have punched me in the face. But, that just came from, my upbringing. My sisters are the same way. They've changed, once they became mothers and wives and all that stuff, they grew and developed and matured. But, it was just, it was our upbringing. It was honestly our upbringing.
How did the relationship challenge you both to work through your emotional issues and communication issues?
I had to understand that emotions are fine. Emotions are fine to express. It's okay to cry. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to have that moment to where you have to process things. And some people process things a little bit longer than others. Me, I could process something and I could be like, okay, whatever, I'm over it, I'm done. Him, it takes him a little bit more time. So I had to be willing and able to understand, okay, hey, just because I'm over something doesn't mean that he is. His process is a little bit different than mine. I'm not going to even say slower. It's different. He processes things differently, So just having that understanding that everybody's not going to be like me. And I have to be willing to accept that. And not just with him, but just in life in general, just being able and being willing to accept that we're all different. We handle things differently. And, you have to respect that about a person, about the way that they handle and process things.
I came into our relationship he would say sensitive, but I was just in touch with my emotions. And so I would probably say that's been our biggest issue, or obstacle that we've had to overcome, and that's been getting him to soften up. Because the way he was raised, he was kind of raised not to show his emotion, raised like a typical Black man, not to show emotion, don't cry, don't let nobody see you feel defeated, whatever, be hard. And so I was more in touch with my, I guess some people may say feminine side, I don't know. But I would cry and I would say you hurt my feelings and all of that. And he didn't really understand it. And so it took a while to get him to understand, but part of our process being in a relationship and being married was that it's not about one side. You have to work together in order for everything to work, and come to one page or whatever. And so that's basically what we work towards. And that, I mean, we had to listen to each other. We had to understand where we were coming from, and come together to put an action plan as to how we were going to execute it and move forward.
And I honestly believe working on our counseling degrees had a lot to do with that.
Yes.
Like, when we did our clinical internship and all this stuff, and and seeing some of the issues that people came in there with, and most of it was just being heard but not being understood.
Mm-hmm.
So that had a big impact, a positive impact on on the shift that we made in our relationship.
What gives you pride to be Black gay men in the South?
I take pride in knowing that I'm okay with walking outside my door, knowing who I am, being comfortable, greeting my neighbors and saying hello to whoever I come across without having a fear of something happening to me. So I do take pride in just being able to be myself, and love my family and friends as they love me.
Just knowing that you're accepted, and that you're not just tolerated, because there's a big difference between being accepted and being tolerated. So just having a support system, having those people behind you, rooting you on, cheering you on, supporting you, in front of your face and behind your back. Just having that strong support system. For me, that's what I take pride in.
Black men loving Black men is a revolutionary act. In your opinions, Britton and Los, what makes Black gay men loving each other so revolutionary?
It's something that has been hidden for so long. So I think now for it to be an open act, for it to now be something that is recognized, not just recognized from the community, but recognized legally. Like, we as Black gay men, we can actually get married now. We can actually have families. We can adopt kids. We can have surrogates. We can have careers. We can have, we can live in any area, neighborhood that we want to live in, any city. So just having that freedom to live your life as a Black gay man, to be married to to another man, to me, that makes it revolutionary, because I honestly believe that it's something that the world didn't see. I don't think they saw it coming.
Mm-hmm.
And if they did, if those that didn't see it coming, I don't think they expected it to be this wide. I don't think they expected it to be this big. So I think the revolutionary part comes with being able to do these things openly, do it with pride, and not have any sense of self-doubt or any sense of fear, but being able to openly live your life as a Black gay man. To me, that makes it revolutionary.
It's revolutionary because it looks every taboo and it looks every tradition in the face and just does the opposite. So growing up as Black men, traditionally, we're living a life that we were told that we're not supposed to live. We're living a life that we're told you're going to hell if you live it, or whatever the case may be. And so to live it and be happy living it, and knowing that you're just living your life against all odds, that makes it revolutionary to me, because, we're in 2022 headed into 2023, holding on to traditions from 1970 and 60. And so it doesn't mesh with the way the world is evolving, and we have to stay on this evolution with everybody else. And, we can't continue to allow our culture, our families, people who don't necessarily believe in what you believe in to hold us back for the future that we have for ourselves. And that's why it's revolutionary, because we're sitting here as two successful Black men that are gay, that have tackled the world, and I don't want for anything besides my household and my family. So, and everybody else can have that if they put their mind to it and break those traditions that are holding them back.